Hey, Crime Salad listeners, welcome back to another episode of Crime Salad. We're your hosts. I'm Ashley.
And I'm Ricky.
And this week we are doing a remix of the Lululemon murder case.
Ooh, I like this case, actually.
Yeah, this one is pretty intriguing. I feel like there's like a lot of twists and turns and mystery.
Spoochy.
Spoochy, as our 2-year-old would say. But yeah, we did this one back in June of 2022, and it's one that we wanted to revisit because it's an interesting one.
It is.
And we didn't want to get it lost in the Crime Salad files, so here we are. Now, just a heads up before we dive into the details of this case, this episode does cover some graphic content that may make some listeners uncomfortable. It is important to note that listener discretion is advised.
You've been warned.
So on March 11th, 2011, Brittany Norwood, 28, and Jayna Murray, 30, were both working at a Lululemon store. Lululemon is an upscale athletic wear brand, and they have stores everywhere. And this store was located in Bethesda, Maryland. Lululemon has become more and more popular over the years.
Yeah. I mean, even high school kids, they all wear Lululemon.
Yeah. So yeah, both Brittany and Jayna, they were working at the store, and they were on their way home in opposite directions. Jayna made her way to her car in the parking garage while Brittany headed towards the train. Shortly after departing, Brittany quickly realized that she had accidentally left her wallet locked inside the store, and inside her wallet just so happened to be her train pass.
Crap.
So she wasn't getting anywhere without it. She reached out to a colleague, describing the situation and inquiring about Jayna's contact information. Jayna was still in the parking garage when Brittany called and agreed to return to the store because she had also forgotten her laptop. Now, Jayna, she was a student finishing her second master's degree at Johns Hopkins University, and she needed her laptop to work on her thesis. She was determined to finish all of her assignments before her boyfriend's visit the following weekend. Jayna was just a few months away from graduation and had exciting plans to relocate to Seattle, Washington to be with her boyfriend and work at Lululemon headquarters.
Oh, I didn't know they were in Seattle. It's kind of cool.
Now, when Brittany returned to the store, she noticed that Jayna was ahead of her, already unlocking the door, and thanked Jayna for making the trip back to the store. Without her wallet, she would have been stuck. But it all worked out because Jayna also forgot her laptop. The two made it inside the building, and Jayna walked to the break room where her laptop was, while Brittany searched for her wallet in the storeroom. After grabbing their stuff, they were heading back through the store to leave when, out of nowhere, 2 guys in black clothes and ski masks approached them. One dude whacked Jayna on the head with a piece of a display rack, while the other guy hit Brittany hard, knocking both of them out cold. Then the men separated the women, attacking and raping them separately before ultimately leaving them for dead.
Ugh, that's sick.
Now, the next morning, Rachel, the store manager, rolled up just before 8 o'clock in the morning, ready to kick off the day and tackle some leftover HR headaches from the day before. As she got closer to the front door, she couldn't help but get distracted by the crowd buzzing around the Apple store nearby. It was the second day the new iPad 2 was out, and the place was swarming with people trying to get their hands on the new released iPad.
They go crazy for those things. There's always like lines at the stores.
Still?
Yeah.
What iPad are we on now? Like, I don't even know.
Oh, 200?
Back in my day, I remember when the first iPhone came out.
My first iPhone was the iPhone 3. Yeah.
Mine was probably that iPhone.
I probably used like half my paycheck to pay the bill. But yeah.
That's just how it was.
I needed it. I needed that beer app. I needed that lightsaber, that Zippo lighter app. Those were the good
Those
old
were
days.
classics.
Yeah.
And so Rachel, she noticed this crowd, and she was all set to start her workday. But as she reached for the door, she realized it wasn't locked from the night before. Thinking that, okay, this is weird, she was just annoyed at this point, figuring that Jayna must have forgotten to lock up the store. With leggings going for around $100 a pop, leaving the door unlocked could have been a major hit financially. So as she stepped inside the store, Rachel's gut told her that this was way more than a simple slip-up. The sight of bloody footprints was a dead giveaway. Something bad had gone down. The place was a mess, with merchandise all over and displays knocked down, looking like there has been a major scuffle.
It's terrifying. Honestly, though, it's so hard, like, when you get to the door and it's not locked. You're like, oh, dang, they didn't lock the door. You know, we're always so naive to these things. But to walk into the door and then, like, actually see bloody footprints, like, your heart would drop to the floor. It's terrifying.
It would be scary, and you would not expect this to happen. So Rachel cautiously moved further into the store, and she started to hear sounds of someone moaning from the back. She was scared, thinking that whoever did this could still be inside the store, so she bolted outside to get some help, and she ran into this guy, Ryan Ha. And Ryan, he was in line for the iPad 2 launch. And she asked him if he wouldn't mind coming inside the store because she believes someone is in need of help. The moment Ryan stepped in, the sound of someone crying out hit him, hinting that someone was definitely hurt. He told Rachel to stay back and call 911 while he followed the cries for help. So this guy, who was casually waiting for the new iPad, was following a trail of blood that looked to be straight out of a horror movie.
Not to mention, he gave up his spot in line.
I know. What if he was like the third person?
He was probably camping out. This dude is a hero, national treasure. Give it up for this guy.
Now, Ryan came to a closed door, and he tried to open it, but something heavy was blocking it. As he pushed it open and peered inside, he saw a female body lying on her stomach in a pool of her own blood. It was clear from her extensive injuries that she wasn't alive and had been there for hours. The blood appeared to look thick, and she was an unnatural color. He noticed there was a large, heavy-looking red toolbox, which someone had placed on top of the woman's back.
What? That's so weird. Why would there be a toolbox on her back?
Now, Ryan, in disbelief as to what he found, heard weak cries coming from another room. Following the cries, he found another woman, tied up with zip ties and covered in blood, but still breathing. Both victims looked like they'd been attacked, one who was fatally attacked. Now, the focus was trying to help the survivor pull through. Police arrived at the scene as they rushed to check on the survivor, hoping that she could provide some details about what happened. But she was in desperate need of medical help, and she appeared to be in a state that wasn't easy for her to communicate.
Jeez.
So they quickly got her to Suburban Hospital. The young woman was Brittany Norwood, and she survived. And as for Jayna Murray, she was found lying in a pool of her own blood, and she did not survive. The book The Yoga Shop Murders by Dan Moores explained that Jayna's attacker didn't hold back. She went through some real horror movie stuff, beaten with a rod, stabbed, hammered, cut up with a box cutter, and even strangled with rope. It was brutal, with everything from getting hit, getting stabbed, strangled, to even worse.
You know what's weird, though, is that sounds like all items that would have been in the store. Like they didn't bring their own weapons for this attack or whatever.
Yeah. Could they have been in that red toolbox?
Could it have been, something that they just saw these two women enter a store alone and followed them in, impulsive?
Yeah, possibly. Like maybe they weren't expecting anyone to be there. Or maybe they would think that this was just going to be a quick attack and then they can steal stuff.
Well, like an opportunist.
Right. So while digging into what happened, the police found out the Lululemon store was right next to the Apple store. The Apple crew was there late that night getting ready for the big iPad 2 launch the next day. They heard some seriously scary noises coming from the next door. One worker even stuck her ear against the wall and heard a scream that sounded like someone was fighting to breathe. And they kept hearing these screams and stuff being dragged around, thumping, and some really high-pitched noises. And one of them even thought about telling the security guard, but he decided not to. thinking that it was just some folks messing around. Maybe they got into a little argument.
I mean, it's so easy to just be naive, though, in these situations.
Yeah, or maybe you don't want to get involved because you don't know what's going on.
Or you don't want to be wrong and waste anyone's time.
Because you're right next door, too, so it's like you're going to have to work next to this person and always have like that weird,
Yeah, it's probably nothing.
But for the next hour and a half, they kept hearing all sorts of sounds like shouting, begging, stuff being thrown around. And at one point, they heard a woman sounding super upset, going, "Please talk to me. What's happening?" And she was asking for help, like pleading for help. I feel like that's on another level.
It is. It is, but it's also it's so hard. It's so hard because it's
Who are we to judge?
Yeah, and in the moment, you're naive. It's like we've heard weird things in the night, but like you said, this happened for hours and was right next door. It's like, at least call the police, please. Like,
yeah, right? Now, once everything went quiet, the Apple employees finished up what they were working on and they left around 11 p.m. midnight. And they had no clue about what was happening next door until the next day. When the detectives chatted with the store manager, they found out Jayna wasn't even supposed to work that night. She covered for someone else. They needed to figure out if this was a possible targeted attack. Turns out, Brittany, the one who survived the attack, was pretty new to the store, having transferred from another location because they had too many employees on staff. She was very well liked by her coworkers. She was super friendly with everyone and got along with everyone pretty fast. And she and Jayna had some things in common, like they both were from Seattle, which gave them plenty to talk about.
They must have both liked rain.
Or Starbucks.
True.
Now, Brittany's backstory is something that you may hear out of a feel-good movie. She is one of 9 kids and grew up in a lower middle-class family. Her dad had his own upholstery gig and always taught them about sticking to their dreams. Brittany's family took that to heart, heading into careers like medicine and engineering, and Brittany herself was a soccer star back in high school, catching the eye of colleges everywhere. She ended up going to Stony Brook University in New York on a full ride. After college, she worked in the hotel business before landing at a Lululemon store, eyeing a future as a personal trainer for the professionals. She even had a job interview lined up at a fitness center, hoping to get closer to her dream job. So at this point in this story, Officer O'Brien was waiting for Brittany, who survived the attack, for her to wake up and share some details as to what happened. During the ride to the hospital, he did notice that she had cuts all over her, including a big one across her forehead and another one on her hand that looked like she got it from fighting off the attacker. Once she woke, Brittany was pretty shaken up, making it hard for her to get into the details. She believes that she was sexually assaulted and remembers being attacked. Despite her saying that she was sexually assaulted, the tests didn't show evidence of that. Now, the next day, a detective from the local PD sat down with Brittany in the hospital. Brittany was recovering there while her family was all around her and super thankful that she made it out of that nightmare alive. With her family support, Brittany started to piece together what happened. And this is when they told her that Jayna didn't make it, which she appeared to be bothered by. So Brittany told the detective that she got hit in the head with something hard, which had her in and out of consciousness, making her memory kind of spotty. She remembered that when she and Jayna were about to leave the store, they realized they forgot to lock it up. And then, out of nowhere, this tall dude jumps out from behind some clothes, hits Jayna on the head with a metal object. Then Brittany said that she was attacked by another guy in black and wearing a ski mask. The guy she described was a bit taller than her, around 5'5" or 5'6", and he grabbed her hair and started cutting off her leggings, threatening her to keep quiet. Brittany saw the tall guy dragging Jayna towards the back aggressively and saying he wouldn't hurt her if she didn't make it difficult.
5'5", 5'6", that's pretty small for a guy.
What are you?
I'm short too, but I'm like 5'8".
Oh. Now, during this time, Brittany said she was freaking out, and she told the cops about how she begged the guy not to hurt her, describing how she was attacked with a coat hanger. She mentioned the Apple employees were knocking on the walls, checking if everyone was okay, and that's when one of the attackers put a knife to her throat, making her unlock the safes and the cash register, and they took all the cash. The cops think this whole thing started as a robbery, and the attack was more of an opportunity, like Ricky said.
Yeah, I agree with that. One thing I can't stop thinking about, though, is that I understand maybe you didn't want to go into the store and actually, commit to that, but wouldn't you, peer through the glass? These are probably storefronts. I think we saw a picture, too. There's definitely, a large window. Wouldn't you walk outside of the Apple store and, peer through the glass, make sure, things were looking okay at least?
Good point. Yeah, why didn't they just kind of take a little peek?
I mean, again, there's no way you should act in every situation, but I don't know. I would have.
I definitely would have too.
I mean, if I saw something terrifying, I might have ran away screaming, but I would have called 911.
Oh, yeah. But I mean, what if?
What if, yeah.
Investigators believe the reason Jayna's injuries were more extensive and ultimately fatal were because Jayna fought back so hard. Since Brittany cooperated, they allowed her to live, or maybe they believed that she would die from her injuries before help could arrive. In fact, when the man, Ryan Ha, first found Brittany zip-tied in the bathroom, he thought that she was dead because she wasn't moving. So after the cops listened to Brittany's side of the story, they started looking for any video footage that might help catch these attackers. But there were no cameras inside or at the front of the store. They did find a camera outside the back of the store facing the alleyway, and they did spot two guys in black hoodies wearing dark backpacks walking away from the Lululemon store towards the Apple store. And this was captured after the Apple store employees had left, which would be sometime around after midnight.
Okay, so they might have the guys.
Yeah. Now, this video, it was quite blurry. It was quite dark outside, and they couldn't make out their faces or anything. So, with no leads, the police put this grainy video out there to the public, hoping that somebody would identify these guys. And when no one could point them out, Lululemon and the police put a big reward of $150,000 for any info leading to these two men. $150,000.
I bet a couple people definitely called in with false information.
So while the police were waiting for any tips to come in, the police took a closer look at the crime scene, and they found Brittany's bloody footprints near the register, but something was a little off. They spotted some bloody footprints from a size 14 Reebok shoe, which they figured belonged to one of the bad guys.
I have to say something here. 5'5" with a size 14 shoe?
You're right.
I mean, they didn't say if it was a woman's shoe or a man's shoe, but that's a big foot for a small guy.
What is this, some kind of clown walking in here?
Wah, 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 wah.
That's a good point, though. But yeah, they spotted this bloody footprint, size 14. They think they have a clue. And it seems like these footprints were all over the place. Some were kind of random, and some made this weird mark next to the footprint. But this is where it gets weird. They found a bunch of athletic shoes in the dressing room for customers to try on. And wouldn't you know it, the same Reebok style shoe, size 14, that matched this bloody footprint was sitting in this pile, and it was clean as a whistle.
That's kind of weird. First off, why Reebok? Who even wears Reebok?
Anyone who shops at Lululemon, of course.
They must be a stockholder.
Possibly. The cops thought that maybe the attackers used these shoes to throw off the trail, walking around with bloody footprints to kind of lead the police into the wrong direction. And especially because these prints stopped near the sink. So they were taken off and maybe cleaned up.
Oh, in the sink.
Yeah.
But then you would see bare feet everywhere too, wouldn't you?
Bare feet or bare feet?
Not bears, not the animal. I hope you don't see bear.
It's been a long week. But yeah, investigators, they weren't sure if this was some kind of crazy coincidence or if these attackers had used the shoes to create false prints and throw off the investigators. They decided to chat with Brittany again now that she was out of the hospital and at home with her family. They met up on the 14th, just a few days after the attack, with Brittany's dad and her brother there too. Police wanted Brittany to feel comfortable, so they asked her to start her story from the beginning of the night. They were hoping that she would recall some new details, which can sometimes show up later after suffering this kind of trauma. And so she went through the story again, including the details of the brutal rape that she experienced. Brittany shared some pretty rough details about the attack. She added that one of the attackers told her the reason he didn't kill her was because she was, quote, fun to fuck.
Yikes.
Brittany also mentioned that the attackers knew her name and where she lived because all of that information was on her ID, which was in her purse, which freaked her out. She also thought both attackers were possibly white in their mid-20s based on how they talked. She also told them that at one point, her attacker pushed her on top of Jayna's body, which explained why she was also covered in Jayna's blood, in addition to her own blood. She became emotional during the conversation and looked down a lot, unable to look at the officers while describing some of the more degrading details she encountered.
Now, were the police starting to suspect something, or is this just all, whatever? Like, this is normal policy? Asking questions?
At this point, I think it was just a matter of gathering as much information as possible because she's the only witness at this point,
Right.
Like, she has the most information compared to anyone.
It's just starting to feel a little weird because she even, I'm not sure if the police asked her this question or if she just, came up with this, cover to say, well, actually, I might have her blood on me also because whatever happened,
Yeah, what would make you come out and say that?
Or was she trying to she's a smart girl, obviously. Is she trying to just hit all of these possible scenarios and cover her own tracks?
Yeah. Definitely thought out.
Yeah. It's funny to see cases like this because we often see cases where they just really drop the ball. They change their stories multiple times and it's just super suspicious. Where she seems like she's just keeping it together.
Yeah, and she did a pretty good job discussing the details considering what happened to her, so everything seemed to really match. When the police asked her if she knew what type of car Jayna drove, she said that she didn't know and she had never been inside of it. They also asked Brittany again if she could remember any more about the assailants' shoes. That question kind of makes me think that they were a little suspicious at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's they were definitely wearing a size 14 Reebok shoe.
Well, it's definitely suspicious being that they found, piles of them around the store.
Yeah. Now, when the police were throwing these questions out at her, she seemed to be bothered, and she quickly said that she didn't know anything about the shoes and made an obvious attempt to change the subject. In fact, when the police tried to go back to the shoes subject, Brittany became rude and said, "We've already discussed that. Next."
Yeah, because I think this is one of those areas she didn't think ahead of time to answer.
She's thinking, oh, crap.
Exactly. I don't know how to answer it. I'm going to deflect.
Her behavior in this interview made investigators want to take a closer look at her and completely eliminate her as a suspect. But her behavior was questionable. So after the police left her home, they decided to have her come back in one more time for a slightly more aggressive interrogation. However, before they could arrange it, her brother called them and said that Brittany had some information that she wanted to share with the police. They assumed that she had remembered more details. However, she was unable to come in the next day, so they scheduled that interview for the 18th. And so, the interview on the 18th, Brittany was accompanied by her brother Chris Norwood and her sister Marissa Norwood. And in this interview, Brittany showed more concern than in her previous interview where she had started to become frustrated and defensive. But now Brittany was very eager to help them solve this crime.
Yeah, because she got to go home and actually think about this stuff again and prepare.
It's probably true. She began acting more like the victim again, and she was willing to discuss the shoe evidence more in detail now. But she just didn't have any more information to share with them that was helpful. Now, she did say that she believed their shoes were black, but the matching print pattern of the shoe found at Lululemon in the store sample bin, they were white. They were still waiting for forensics to come back on the shoe to see if they could find any trace amounts of blood on the shoe, even though it appeared to be completely clean.
I mean, a white shoe, though, you'd think it would stain pretty easily.
Yeah, or like on the shoelace, how it's more of like a fabric material.
Yeah, exactly. You couldn't get that out.
Now, during the interview with Brittany, she abruptly changed the subject and announced why she was really there. She began by saying, all right, I'm here because of Jayna's car. She said that when Jayna came back to let her inside the store, that Jayna had illegally double parked her car. She probably parked that way because she was only expecting to be there for a few minutes. And Brittany said before she was sexually assaulted, the shorter assailant made her move Jayna's car to a different parking lot. She told them the attackers were watching her the entire time and threatened to come and kill her if she talked to anyone or didn't come straight back. She told them that she went alone to move the car, and while moving the car, she saw a police officer in a patrol car, but she did not try to attract attention or notify him because she was too afraid. When asked why she returned to the Lululemon store, she again explained that she was terrified to disobey her attackers, and they knew where she lived because her purse, which also held her wallet and her ID, those things were all still inside the store.
Honestly, like, none of that makes sense to me. Because first off, why would he let her even, leave the store, get in a car to park his car in a different place?
Right.
Doesn't make a lot of sense. And then she just says, well, I was afraid to disobey him or whatever. But like at the same time, it's like you could have said like, oh, maybe I was afraid for the other employee. Maybe I went back to save her. But she didn't even say that. She just said, I was afraid to disobey him, so I went back to the store. She saw a police officer. She could have easily flagged them down, gotten help. To me, this is just a giant cover-up.
Yeah, it's definitely a big stretch.
Mm-hmm.
It's not adding up. And maybe she said all this because she knew that cop who was sitting there probably noticed this girl in Jayna's car that night, or maybe had some sort of surveillance footage seeing her in this car. So it was, like Ricky said, a way to just cover up this whole entire thing.
Also, I think I said his car, but yeah, I just mean whoever's car was moved.
Now, when police asked her for more details, suddenly Brittany got very irritated again. The sweet, innocent young lady who wanted to help with this investigation snapped at the officers, saying, "We've been over this." And they pointed it out to Brittany that each time they talked with her, she would slightly change her story or the sequence of events. That is when the detective on this case told Brittany that he didn't believe her story, and he knew that she was lying, and he could prove it with evidence.
It's like she started out strong, but now with the story kind of falling apart, it's becoming more and more obvious. And that's probably when she starts to make more errors,
Yeah, like there's these holes in this case and it's not quite adding up. So when she's questioned, she gets like really defensive.
Mm-hmm.
So the detective went on and said they had already located the police officer who was on patrol that night, and they talked with him. And he first noticed someone sitting in Jayna's car with the lights on and not moving or not exiting the vehicle. And when he came back around an hour later, the car was still there with someone inside it with the lights on. 2 hours later, the car was in the same spot with the lights off and no one was inside. By that time, Jayna was already dead. So by her own admission, that person had to be Brittany. They told her it didn't make sense for her to sit in Jayna's car for 90 minutes unless she was concocting some sort of alibi. They also found both Jayna and Brittany's blood inside the car, as well as fingerprints and hair belonging to Brittany. They invited Brittany's siblings inside the interrogation room and told them they thought Brittany was lying and was responsible for Jayna's murder. Investigators told her siblings that Brittany was suspected of stealing at the first Lululemon store where she worked from both employees that she worked with and also from the store itself. They explained that the real reason why they transferred her to the Bethesda store was because of the stealing issues. There was even talk about setting up a hidden camera to catch Brittany stealing, which may have been more helpful because of the situation. Then they left Brittany inside the interrogation room with her siblings. Chris and Marissa asked Brittany if she did this, and she put her head in her hands and said, "I've ruined our family."
Ooh, there's a hint or like a break.
And with these types of interrogations, when family is surrounding the suspect, it kind of makes them more comfortable to open up and kind of like loosen up and tell the truth in some cases.
Right.
Which I think was their tactic.
And it seems like they were probably a close family, so it's a little harder to lie to them
than it is the police.
Right.
Now, within days of Brittany being at this new store, things began disappearing from coworkers' purses and from inventory. The store had a mandatory bag check each night for all of their employees, which began when Brittany started. The night of the 11th, Jayna asked Brittany to look inside her bag where she found a pair of leggings with the tag still attached. And so Jayna asked Brittany for a receipt, and Brittany told her that the employee who sold her the leggings forgot to give her a receipt. So Jayna said, "Okay, that's fine. I'll check with the employee tomorrow. Have a nice night." And they both left. That's when Jayna called the employee and confirmed that she never sold Brittany any leggings. And then Jayna called the manager and said, "We got that lying bitch."
Oh, so that's how they know this. So Jayna actually reported her.
Yeah.
Okay. So that possibly gives us a motive.
Well, I don't think she knew that Jayna talked to the manager at this point.
Oh, okay.
So after the call to Rachel, the manager, Jayna set the alarm, locked the front door, and headed to her car in the parking garage. And within minutes of leaving, Jayna got a call from Brittany. And she said she left her wallet with her train pass inside the store. Investigators believed that Brittany lured Jayna back to the store where she viciously attacked and killed her, and then staged it to look like it was some kind of robbery. All in an effort to keep Jayna from discovering she had stolen the leggings, not realizing that Jayna had already informed the store manager.
All of that over some stolen leggings.
Yeah.
It's awful.
There was like a lot of hate and anger in her attack.
There was, but like, was it worth it? Like, you would have just lost your job or maybe paid a fine or had to pay for what you've stolen. Like you're going to take someone's life for that?
Very strange. So later that afternoon on the 18th, Brittany was arrested for Jayna Murray's murder. 7 months later, Brittany went to trial where the depravity of her actions were finally revealed. It was determined from the evidence that the attack had to have lasted at least 17 minutes and probably longer, which, like you said, is crazy over a pair of leggings.
Now, does that align with the Apple Store story?
What's that?
Well, they were saying that they heard all the yelling and screaming. Like, how long did they hear that for?
All night until, I think, before they left.
So it probably lasted much longer than 17 minutes.
Yeah. And what's even more disturbing is it's believed that Jayna was alive for each and every injury leading up to the very last one. As she was pleading for her life, begging Brittany to stop while the Apple employees heard her desperate screams for help. And can you believe the medical examiner, Mary Ripple, determined that there were 331 separate injuries to Jayna's body?
It's terrible.
She testified that, quote, "I believe she was alive for all of them."
It's like a manic episode. That's the only way you can really describe this. It's kind of like whenever there's like a domestic thing where one of the partners stabs the other one 500 times, and it's like, well, this was more than just a murder. This was aggression.
Yeah. So the 331 injuries that she suffered, the medical examiner determined that those all included brain bruising, stab wounds, strangulations, chipped teeth,
Jeez.
and finally a severe trauma to the base of Jayna's brain.
That's what I mean. It is just rage.
Yeah. And the medical examiner said that the trauma that was done to the base of Jayna's brain, that part of the brain is pretty critical to you being able to even function.
Wow.
And she wouldn't have lived very long after that.
Like, it's giving me like Saw vibes, like the fact that the dude in that movie was like hiding in the corner as one of the victims, she like actually put herself in handcuffs. She beat herself up, made herself look like she was actually attacked. Holy hell. It's just a manic episode.
It's scary.
It is.
It's scary that people like these types of people exist.
All over some damn leggings. Like, leggings.
Take the leggings, please.
Like, you're going to kill someone over some leggings and go through all of that and all of the cover up, and wow.
And all through this attack, Jayna, she had an extraordinary will to live. And this was all proven by the blood spatter patterns that were all over the wall. It was clear that she fought for her life. And there was even a point where they noticed Jayna was standing and she couldn't defend herself and she couldn't stand any longer. So she slid down with her back against the wall, like from a standing position to a fetal position, trying to protect her head with her extremities.
Right. Like, I could only imagine she's blocking these attacks or, trying to survive and fight back, especially lasting for 17 minutes or more.
Yeah. I know the Apple employees next door, they didn't really think anything like this was going down, but after knowing the extreme attack that was happening next door, like, I would feel so horrible being that employee. Not to blame anybody, because these kind of things happen. And then later on, we're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that. But wow.
Like, how many times do you hear, this sounds stupid, but like when I was a kid, I'd be out with a group of friends and you would hear this like crazy scream and you'd be like, oh my God, like we have to call the police. And then you find out it was like a cat fighting, right? Like, I know that's a funny example, but you're never gonna hear something and really, it's so easy to be naive. And that's kind of what I'm getting at. So I definitely don't blame them. I think we can train ourselves a little better to say like, hey, even if I'm wrong, maybe
at least just call.
Yeah. Could possibly save someone's life.
Because no one's expecting this crazy attack to be happening in a Lululemon store at night. Like, you'd think they're closed, like,
or they're just messing around or being goofy or being.
You would never expect that.
Yeah, I agree. It's just shame they didn't call, but I also get it.
Yeah. So like we said, Jayna, she put up a fight. And they even proved this because there was over 105 defensive wounds to Jayna's hands, arms, and legs. And remember that red toolbox that was found on Jayna's back whenever they found her body?
Yeah.
Well, they found evidence showing that Brittany must have used multiple tools within this toolbox to try to end Jayna's life.
So this was a toolbox that stayed there, right? Like, this was a Lululemon toolbox.
Yeah, this was a toolbox that was always in this one spot. But Jayna, when she fell down, she actually landed in that spot. So it's like the toolbox wasn't even there.
Oh.
Indicating, that she was using the tools before she fell on the ground.
I see.
Now, when the employees next door could hear Jayna struggling, that is when they believe Brittany went into the employee break room, found a knife, and inserted it into the base of Jayna's neck, severing her brainstem and her spinal cord. Ugh. Terrifying. How could you even do that?
It's awful.
And the medical examiner said that this was the last and final injury that caused Jayna's death. And then to lay there like the victim.
Right.
after doing that. Like, you are a sick individual.
I know.
Did you ever see her mugshot picture? Like, she actually looks scary. Like, every time I see it, I go like, ooh.
Honestly, I don't know what she looks like.
Here, take a look.
Okay, so you just pulled it up, but she looks evil just because I know what she did, but honestly, she looks
kind of normal, actually.
Yeah, super normal. Like, this is just a normal person you would see in public.
Yeah, and there's a picture of her at, like, some kind of soccer game or something, laughing with friends, and it's like, there's two sides to this person. Like, there's, like, this nice, friendly person, and then there's, like, this dark, evil side that just brutalized Jayna.
Right. It's crazy, though, because it's obviously she has friends, and they're probably all shocked, too. Like, I mean, maybe there's some people who saw this dark side, but there's so many people that are probably just like, oh, my God, like, I know her. Like, we were friends. Like, we played on the soccer team together. Like, this is a normal person. It's just so hard for me to, like, put those two together. Like, crazy, evil, what, you know?
I mean, this was the only murder that she was involved in, but it's almost like, how?
Right.
Like, how is this the only one, you know?
Mm.
Like, how severe the attack was is just crazy.
Yeah.
Now, during the trial, the prosecutor presented evidence that stated wherever Brittany went, thefts followed. In fact, she was expelled from Stony Brook University for stealing out of someone's locker. She had also stolen from family members and close friends as a child. So the stealing thing has been an ongoing problem. Many witnesses described Brittany as a klepto.
Right, but I mean, stealing for the excitement or the thrill, that's one thing, but like killing someone, like brutally killing someone, covering up the murder, pretending that you're also the victim, like, that's just way worse. It's just something else, something of its own.
Yeah. Now, if you remember the size 14 Reebok shoe, the footprints that were made with the blood, there was this like kind of weird pattern next to it, and those were determined to be the shoelaces. So the shoe must have been untied.
That's a nice little forensic find, though.
Yeah. In the process of planting these false footprints, she dipped the shoelaces into Jayna's blood as well.
You know, when I was listening to you talk about this earlier, I was also thinking, like, as far as like pressure goes and like how your foot, you know, like basically how your heel hits, how your toes hit, all of that stuff, like would definitely be off. Like if you're a forensic person, like if she was basically putting her hands in the shoes or something, there may be like some partial prints or something like that. I don't know. Maybe I'm getting too nerdy with it, but I feel like there would be some findings like that too.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure that they're all over the science of that.
I'm not a scientist, but I wish I was. All right, so there's two parts of this, though. I mean, there were the two people walking behind the store, you know, short guys or whatever we talked about.
Dressed in black.
Dressed in black. Did they have nothing to do with this then? This was just purely a cover-up?
Yeah, because it kind of seems like maybe this could have been some sort of group effort to, like, you know, steal from the store.
Right. And it just seems weird, though, because at the same exact time, there were these two guys meeting the description that she made up, walking behind the store. Was that just a coincidence?
So, as for those two men that were seen on surveillance video, they were identified. And it turns out that they were kitchen workers at a restaurant nearby. So it was up the street. And they had just finished their shift and they were leaving for the night when they were caught on surveillance camera. So after talking with them, they were at the wrong place at the wrong time.
Oh, wow.
And they had nothing to do with it.
Yeah, that's unlucky.
So it's just some kind of coincidence. But luckily, they weren't ever suspects in this case or, like, you know, anything. So,
well, it sounds like Brittany messed up enough that they weren't looked at first.
Yeah. Possibly Brittany saw these two walking, you know, when she was waiting in the car. She's like, oh, I'm going to say that they did it, you know?
No, that's a good point.
Because, I mean, not to give her credit, but she's pretty smart to come up with, like, this crazy story and, like...
No, she's not a dumb person. Yeah. Like, she's pretty sharp. I mean, honestly, like, the beginning of her excuses were good. It just seems like it's one of those things where she didn't think of every different scenario, and then she went home. She probably thought about like, oh crap, I better explain this. And that's when you start to get the discrepancies.
Right. So the prosecution, they gave the jury a timeline of events that neatly fit the evidence. They said on the night of March 11th at 9:45 p.m., Brittany left the store, followed by Jayna a few minutes later. And within minutes of Brittany leaving, Jayna called Rachel, the store manager, and that's where she reported finding the stolen merchandise inside of Brittany's bag. A few minutes after this call, Brittany realized that she was going to get caught and she would likely be fired. She set a trap for Jayna, luring her back to the store with the intention of permanently silencing her. So at 10:05 p.m., Brittany met Jayna back at the store. Jayna believed that this would be just a quick, double park the car, run into the store, grab her stuff. Within minutes, she'd be back in the car and they'd be on their way.
Mm-hmm.
However, within minutes of this all happening, the employees at the adjacent Apple store heard two women yelling at each other for at least 20 minutes. The prosecution told the jury that the length of the attack showed premeditation. At any point, Brittany could have just stopped the attack and allowed Jayna to live, but she put her through a torturous ordeal that ended her life. Now, sometime after 11 p.m., Brittany moved Jayna's car 3 blocks away, where she sat in the car for around 90 minutes, calming herself down, covered in her blood and Jayna's blood, and decided what to do next.
So this is that part, though, where she claimed that the attacker made her move Jayna's car.
Yes.
Right?
And she probably saw the two men walking, and she saw the police officer, and she's trying to put the pieces of the puzzle together to make it look like...
Mm-hmm. However, I think this is the beginning to the end. This is where she really messed up. This is a huge hole. Trying to say, I saw a cop, but I didn't say anything, and I moved the car, but I came back to the store because I didn't want anything bad to happen to me. That has to be where it all started to fall apart. Reflecting, trying to come up with a plan. Like, wow.
And after sitting in the car, Brittany made the decision to make herself look like a victim too. She walked the 1/4 mile back to the store and created the evidence to support her story that she and Jayna were the victims of 2 male attackers. She cut Jayna's pants and then her own to create the illusion of a sexually motivated assault. Then she put on the size 14 men's shoes, forgetting to tie them, and walked throughout the blood, creating the evidence of a second assailant.
Maybe she's crazy, but she at least knows what she's doing. She diverted a plan. She came up with, oh, I'm going to make this look like a sexual assault, a rape, something like that. Really to pinpoint it, and then have the intelligence to say, I need to make footprints. I need to take the focus away from me and use those men's size Reeboks to paint this picture. Man, she knew what she was doing. I feel like a crazy person doesn't know what they're doing.
Yeah, and she even made superficial cuts to her forehead, her stomach, her legs, and her neck. So these aren't very deep cuts, but just enough to look like she was maybe defending herself.
Right.
And then she even zip-tied herself to the pipe under the sink in the bathroom, presenting herself as the victim of this violent, vicious assault and rape and attack. And she was in the hospital struggling to stay alive. She put on this show.
Yeah, it's the whole victim thing.
Over a pair of leggings.
Jesus.
I wonder if she got those leggings after all this.
Maybe she wore them to the hospital at least. She's not going to wear them in prison.
She can enjoy those orange ones.
Those are fashionable.
Now, Brittany's defense lawyer didn't deny that Brittany was responsible for Jayna's death. However, he argued that it was second-degree rather than first-degree murder. He believed that Brittany snapped in a moment of rage without any premeditation involved. The jury began their deliberations with a simple vote. Within 2 minutes, all 12 jurors had voted guilty for first-degree murder. However, they thought they had a duty to see if they could agree on reducing the charges down to second-degree murder. In less than an hour, the jury realized their first vote was the correct verdict. Brittany intentionally, with premeditation, tortured and killed Jayna after luring her back into the store, all over a pair of leggings.
And honestly, that's the detail, because I could easily go with that second degree, saying it's not premeditated, but the fact that she,
she could have stopped any time, she could have stopped herself.
Not only that, it's like she definitely could have stopped herself, but she called her back to the store. Like, she was planning something.
Yeah. Now, at the time of the murder, police discovered that Brittany was working as a call girl and using sugar daddy sites to supplement her income. She also had a recurring ad on Craigslist under personal services. Brittany also had a card in her wallet for a prostitution counseling group. But none of this evidence was allowed to come into trial, as it wasn't anything that could support this case. Other than providing Brittany's finances were to the point where she was looking for other ways to supplement her income, it wasn't valuable to the prosecution. Investigators never found that money that Jayna took from the safe, and they believed that she hid it somewhere with the intention of retrieving it later.
Oh, like a Shawshank Redemption, like dig it back up and,
when she gets out.
Yeah. It's a good movie.
During sentencing, Judge Robert Greenberg angrily condemned Brittany's actions, telling her she was one hell of a liar. He said, after every blow, you had a chance to think about what you were doing. Then he sentenced her to life in prison without the possibility of parole to the Maryland Correctional Institution for Women. So she'll never get that money.
Wow. She might send someone on a mission to get that money.
True. I wonder where it could be. We should go find it.
It's like the Goonies. We can hunt down some treasure.
Who wants to come with us?
All right, change the vibe. I hate her.
After Brittany was sentenced, she addressed the Murray family. She told them, I hope for the Murray family. Someday you'll be able to find forgiveness in your heart. I'm truly sorry. Is she really sorry, though, or sorry for herself for getting caught?
Well, no, you need parole, so you need to be sorry.
Oh, okay. I mean, she pulled an all-nighter figuring out how to cover up this crazy attack.
I know.
Whew.
Like, if she actually was in a manic state and then came out of it, she would have been like, I need to turn myself in. I need to get medical attention there. Maybe she's still alive, whatever. No, she
evil. Got caught.
She got caught. You're going to jail.
I mean, the knife in the back of the head, that's on another level of just like choking someone and going, crap,
Well, I mean, you decided to go back to the location and zip tie yourself to something.
Yeah. I don't think her apology will fix anything that she did.
No.
Like we said, Jayna Murray had so much ahead of her. She was ragefully attacked when faced with the one who got caught stealing. But just like we said, Jayna Murray had so much ahead of her. And she was ragefully attacked when faced with the one who got caught stealing. This just goes to show, if you hear something or see something, report it to the police.
Yeah. I mean, even if it sounds like two cats fighting.
Yeah. And you can always do that anonymously. You don't have to say who you are or where you are.
It's okay to be wrong.
Yeah, it's totally fine. You could be over paranoid. Doesn't matter.
Right.
And that completes this week's episode.
I like this one. It's a good little remix.
Maybe we'll do another remix in like 3 years.
I like the remixes because we can actually like say what we feel.
Yeah. This was a good one.
I like it.
I can't wait till next week. Now, next week might sound a little bit different because...
Oh, we're moving.
We're moving. So if we sound like we're in some kind of car, we might be.
There could be crickets in the background.
Yeah.
We've had that before in the past.
So the sound might change a little, but just don't give up on us.
Don't do it.
We're working on it.
But with that being said, reviews have been great.
Yes, thank you.
We both appreciate the reviews. They hit us like right in the feels, It gives us a little boost. It takes us into the next week and we come out swinging, You know
what it's like for me? Like Space Jam, whenever Bugs Bunny hands them
that special juice.
Yeah, but it's just water. It's like that. It's like,
I love it.
And I feel like I could take on the world.
That special stuff.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for listening, and we will be back next week.
Over and out.